Rarieda, Member of Parliament, is with us. Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu, and Samson Cherargei. Senator Nandi is also with us here, talking about the state of the nation, or state of politics, if you like. Let's see what you're saying online. A lot has come through. Cornelius Bet says, when the driver, who's the president, drives badly, blame the driver, not the tout, who's the deputy president, in quotes. Kiprono Abraham Kogo says, Cherargei is wrong by all measure. Why should you destroy Jubilee without informing the members? What I know and believe in is that our DP will be the Jubilee Party candidate in 2022, fully and squarely supported by His Excellency the President, as agreed. Edwin Ogoma says, there is enough time to do this and complete this cycle even before the elections. They have done nothing to wananchi. The issue of Jubilee's Big Four agenda can come after those speaking the loudest. Otiende, there was a concern by Cherargei that Jubilee failed after the handshake.
I'll address Cherargei shortly, but let me, I heard my friend Senator Wamatangi say that he might have presidential ambition. That's why we have said we are advertising in ODM for all the candidates. He's welcome to apply because we are democratic. We will allow your application, we'll consider it on merit, and you never know, you might be our presidential candidate, you know. But even as we do that, one of the factors we will consider is what I told you, because I believe in rotational, holding of some of these positions, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I think that my friend Senator Cherargei is engaging in what's called escapism. And that's what the DP and all his cohorts are engaging in. Escapism. It's very simple. You cannot, on the one hand, say and lecture us about the DP being the principal assistant to the president at all material time, and then at the same time say that the DP has not been in government since 2017. If that is the case, why has he not resigned? That's what you do. You see, you cannot want to take the benefits that accrue from an administration and you hope to discuss all the demerits that accrue with it. It is one package. You benefit from the successes and you accept the failures. That's how it is. So what Cherargei is saying does not make sense because it's not even supported scientifically. The issues that are alive now were alive even in the first regime of the Jubilee administration. If you can look and you can start from the issue of the stadia. The issue of the stadia were not started in 2017. These were promised way back in 2013. We still don't have those stadias, and we can go through it. Now, we can acknowledge, as Senator Wamatangi says, that there are also certain challenges beyond us. There are challenges like COVID and other challenges. So as I'd said earlier, we can debate what are some of the reasons why, Jubilee has not succeeded in all its promises, okay? And some of them are beyond human, some are within human reach, but it is also possible that some are from the internal frictions, merely because the president appears not to want to endorse his deputy, and therefore it could also be resulting from internal sabotage. Secondly, and let's be very clear on this, to say that the problems of Jubilee started with the handshake is a total myth, and 2 points to be made. One, anybody who was in this country as of the time of the handshake, as of around February, March 2018, would know that without the handshake, we would probably not have a country. And if we do not have a country, you cannot even start talking of failures of successes of an administration. You know that even Parliament as an institution was not working. You know that even the other institutions, this country was divided down the middle. If we continued that way, even Jubilee as an administration we might not be talking about it. So anyone who blames the handshake for the failures of Jubilee can only be quite myopic in my view. Secondly, I am yet to hear what is that one thing that Jubilee wanted to do, but it has not done because of the handshake? What is that one thing? Conversely, what is that one thing that Jubilee has done which it did not want to do, but it has done because of the handshake? None. On the contrary, since the handshake, we in ODM, at least in Parliament, have committed to supporting the government agenda. There is no proposal, there is no reasonable proposal that has been brought either to the National Assembly or to the Senate that the ODM as a party has shot down. The contrary is, before the handshake, we were shooting down a lot of them. And even some of them, when we successfully shot down, the speaker would still declare that it has passed anyway. You know, so anyone who blames the handshake for failures must tell you what is that one thing. But you see, Senator Cherigai mentioned that, there are projects in the Rift Valley which we did not continue. That is a very sad thing, because by his own admission, he's saying that because the deputy president was deputy president, he steered intentionally to have a lot of projects in the Rift Valley. Otherwise, why would he be talking about the Rift Valley? And some of them, and I support, it's not the ODM that stopped them, that Aror and Kimarer. It was not ODM that stopped it. It is the government where he serves as the deputy. And it had to be stopped because it was just one of very many avenues and conduits for corruption. Okay. I support the question of, and I think last week I said it's a situation where you do not have two ethnicities appropriate the presidency for 58 years. Because it's the same principle. Look, we have democracy. But sometimes when democracy works to the detriment of a certain group of people, then you tweak it. Look, for example, why do we have women representatives? It is because in democracy we have shown that since independence and even before, every time we give citizens the opportunity to elect, they almost always only elect men. Therefore, we decide that we must create certain positions where at least women can get in. That's why we have women representatives. Same to persons with disabilities. That is not contrary to democracy. That is enforcing democracy, because democracy is in peril when it's appropriated by one group of people. Okay. And that is the principle. Okay.
No, Trevor, just to start on that last point that my friend Otiende Amolo has made, I think that point is home and dry. That it is acknowledged, actually. It is good sense. And I believe that's what the president was trying to say then when he spoke, that it is good for the country if people would promote equality and equity along that thought line. And the question is when people think that way, then how would you cooperate more? How would you agree more? How would you build stronger bonds that you can be able to bring in community to community and community to community and agree together? And probably when you are forming a political party or political parties, then you can have a balance. For example, like in the spread that we have had since the reform of the Constitution, whereby you have various interests represented, including people with disabilities. All that can be harmonized and agreed upon in our structure. The only point that we made is this, that it should not be misconstrued or misperceived to mean that during a competitive process of electioneering, that there's a community that is barred from fronting a candidate. And I welcome especially the gesture, my good friend Otiende Amolo, that you have extended to me, that I could also apply to be one of the presidential candidates. It's only that I would be needing the endorsement of the candidate himself for me to even get near it. But who knows? We might bring down those barriers one of these days in the future. Yeah. And then you could find our Matangi being a presidential candidate in for ODM. For ODM. that should be probably close to the to the days when we'll be folding up the world. You never know. But we hope for the best. But two quick points I would want to make. Yeah. But let me also remember to remind my good friend. We have had a long debate with Otiende Amolo for many years about this winning and losing of elections, and I was avoiding to go there. It's been a long debate we have had. And this morning he has been persistent on reviving that discussion. I just want to concede and agree that winning is a very subjective term. Yeah. And even concept, depending on where you stand and what you intend to win and how you interpret it. Because in the elections that we had for all that time in 2013, 2017, 07, winning meant different things to different parties and different individuals. And so in that context, then we can agree with Otiende Amolo that they could have won in that case. But in the context that grants leadership authoritatively and constitutionally to the country, then, Jubilee won. And that debate can also be had all the way. However, let me make just one point, Trevor. I've known the Deputy President for a long time. And I'll say this with a very clear mind, that when I look at his record all the way from when I knew him, William Ruto has had, from the time when he was Minister in Agriculture and many other portfolios, he has had a record of a performer then, and even now, I believe. And he has done things that show that he is not only forward-looking, that he is somebody who can get things done. And that record is there for people to see. Now, I would be very, very hesitant to support people like my friend Cherargei or any other people around him, even William Ruto himself, to buying into this new mentality that is trying to be sold around, that you can now start making excuses for not doing the things you would have done. And I want to be very clear. In my mind, I am certain that there is nothing that the handshake has stopped us from doing as Jubilee. Nothing. Because there is nothing they have come, there are no monies that we have appropriated to the handshake team so that we cannot do what we should do. There is nothing that has come to Parliament, legislative, that we could not do. The only, and we must make this distinction, Trevor. Yeah. If there is any, you can call it interference if you like, from the handshake, it has been political, not on performance. It is about the politics, not the performance of the government or the team that is elected. And so I would want us, moving forward, because one principle that I uphold and that we should uphold as leaders is where you are and been given the mandate to lead, agree, concede that the buck stops with you. Okay. And I believe that's where the president's mind is. Okay. That he knows that the buck stops with him, where he is. For us as Jubilee, that's where it stops. And so I would be of this mind. And I believe that that's the way to go, even as far as the deputy president and the advancement of his own agenda and his political future would be like. Because you see, they say what goes around comes around. Yeah. And supposing for any one reason, and for many reasons that will be and can be, he finds himself as the president in 2022. Yeah. He would want to, he himself, perform to the end of his mandate. And he would not want these stories around the performance and the record and his legacy of whom he will be. Yeah. And so if we entertain that these stories around here of people blowing dust and throwing, and blurring the vision and making excuses for what we should do, because I have been persistent on this point, that if we want to get it right, we can put our heads together and say, my friends, we have got another 12 months. Yeah. What can we make right with what we have? Okay. What can we appeal to Kenyans about to? Either we will adjust this, we will have to deliver that, we are not able to deliver that, we can make our case. And at the end of the day, because I will be, for example, myself, as a younger politician, I'll be seeking mandate elsewhere. Yeah. In other positions. I would not want to be known as one fellow who was in Jubilee, and then when things stopped to show because of many reasons, that I was there, trying to make stories and excuses. Yeah. I want to go to the line and touch that tape and say I have done the best that I could. Okay. And I came along with exactly what I said before. So I think that's the way we should go as Jubilee. Okay. I don't think that we have time for making those excuses. Let us agree that we can deliver on what we say to Kenyans, and what we cannot deliver, let us explain why, say why, and do what we should do in a better way. Speaking of the president, President Uhuru Kenyatta is now accusing his deputy, William Ruto, of fomenting a dangerous class war in the country through the hustler versus dynasty narrative. Kenyatta, in a no-holds-barred interview, chided critics of the Building Bridges Initiative process and the proposed constitutional amendments. The president, who spoke during a wide-ranging interview on vernacular radio stations, urged the Mt.Kenya region to ignore what he termed as incitement and misinformation. Watch Francis Gashuri's story.
President Uhuru Kenyatta used a group interview with radio stations broadcasting in Gikuyu language, among them Inoro FM, to appeal to the hearts and minds of his Mt.Kenya support base that has for months been the epicenter of a fierce succession scramble, the Hustlers versus Dynasties political narrative, spearheaded by Deputy President William Ruto to solidify his 2022 State House bid, seemingly getting under the president's skin.
Agĩkorwo logic ĩrĩa mũndũ arakĩhũthĩra nĩ ya kuuga atĩ tondũ baba arĩ mũnene hani ndĩ mũnene ndiũĩ gũtokerwo tũkĩrĩ dynasty rĩ nĩtũthiĩ atĩ tondũ thoguo arĩ ndagĩtarĩ we ũtuĩke ndagĩtarĩ waĩkĩrwo we ndwagĩrĩirwo nĩ kuona arwaru tondũ thoguo nĩ amaroraga nĩguo.
Kenyatta attempting to explain his rotational presidency sentiments in Vihiga County a week ago in a rejoinder to the Ruto axis.
Agĩkorwo nĩ ũragĩtwĩra haha na ndũragĩconoka kũrũgama kĩharo kĩgima kwĩra andũ atĩ ĩno family nĩ gĩathanĩte mĩaka ĩno rĩ thĩna ũkĩrĩ hana inyuĩ ngĩkĩmwĩra atĩrĩrĩ ona inyuĩ nĩ mwathanĩte kaĩ andũ angĩ matangĩathana okona nĩ wamahutirie handũ tondũ rĩu ũgĩkĩigua inegene rĩrĩa rĩkoretwo ho kiumia gĩkĩ to ginya korwo nĩ hasora na dynasty ona andũ angĩ no mathane.
Hii sio wheelbarrow tena, sema gari ya mahasla wewe.
The deputy president, while insisting on what he calls a bottom-up economic policy, has continued to push the hustler narrative to advance his presidential pursuit in next year's polls. Ruto, who is associated with the United Democratic Alliance UDA, whose symbol is a wheelbarrow, now accused of funding a class war, pitting the haves against the have-nots.
Uko twenderie maundu maria andu megũteithia kana mekũguna andu uroka kuhorithia andu ni undu wake uroka kuuga ati uguo muthuri to cio rathire agacinirwo ngari yake na aracinirwo niki tondu handu nake gĩaka accident na gutikire mundu taikoragwo na accident no gucina ngari ati tondu ati ni atuika ni a dynasty muthuri uthiete kuruta thithino yake nigetha hote kwihurira gakari gake ri bata wa kuhorithania andu niki.
But it is the president's defense of the cost of a referendum in the BBI-driven constitutional amendments push that laid bare the extent of his rift with the country's second-in-command.
Tiga ukaha kuhingisha iria maiyaga o muthenya ni ikirite bilioni icio igire andu aya ni buri tondu ri na ndikuhetiga kweka ati kukuga uguo tondu urenda gutwira ati ni kuhuthika bilioni igire ni kuhuthika ndiwe bilioni imwe ni kuhuthika ki neguo we iria ciakura huthira ri o mwaka ni cigana.
The president's backyard has experienced a political turmoil over the BBI process, Kenyatta blaming political propaganda from Central Kenya members of parliament allied to the deputy president for the document's hostile reception in the mountain.
Handu hatongoria kwamba kurora mathina macio na kurora maundu maria mabata mageguna andu aitu mararora horo wa siasa cia 2022 magitwaraga ati ino ni undu wa ng'ania ati ino ni Raila turatwarithania nake ni handi ndamwira ati nie giki ndireka ni undu wa ng'ania ni tutigei kuhenio ni tutigei kuhingwo maitho tondu murahingwo maitho mukerwo ati nyamu ino ni Raila reke ndigikurie mbeca cioka Kiambu kana cioka Nairobi kana ithie Kirinyaga no uriganetie mugunda na Raila ku nigetha gwituike ati ni horo wake. Please ni tweherie siasa.
The Kenyatta-Ruto fallout scuttling the Jubilee succession arithmetic.
Nie ndirathina na mundu no nie ndi na kiriko giakwa ti na mundu kiriko giakwa ni na muingi wa bururi uyu witu wa Kenya na kiriko kiu ri ni maita meri wa mbere kuruta wira uria ndamerire ni nguruta na haria hothe tugathie rekei tugathie twi kindu kimwe na rekei tugathie tuwe kuria tumite na kuria turenda gwika atia guthie nie mareciria ati manu mate ndengo matumira thigari manyitwo atiriri angikorwo yo niyo barabara monete njega ati ni twaruma president rumai.
Francis Gashuri, Citizen TV.
Cherargei, your reaction to the president's conversation in terms of the hustler versus dynasties creating a class war?
Trevor, just a quick, before I answer that, is that on the issue of projects in Rift Valley, we did have projects just like any other country, and I want to challenge Atiendo Molo to visit the Ministry of Treasury. You will realize where those projects are. Number two is on the aspect of stalling of national government projects within Rift Valley. That has been an issue, and the best person to answer is the person in charge of coordination of government activities. On the issue of other projects that are being, corruption has been used by the DPP to weaponize them, that's a story we can have a conversation about that day. And finally, I have heard at the end of Molo talking about that we needed ODM in parliament. We had the majority as Jubilee party in National Assembly and the Senate. So I think you should just use other reasons to try and convince the reason as to why they went into handshake. On the issue of Asala versus Dynasty, I think the Deputy President has been very clear, and I didn't tell that Francis there said we need a bottom-up approach in terms of problems that we are facing in the country, because before we have been using top-down approach in giving solutions to Kenyans. And I think the spirit of Asila movement is that we having a conversation where the people who did not matter in terms of the governance issues, the development agenda, has not been welcome. But I think what the Deputy President has been pushing for is to have an all-inclusive. And now that we are talking about inclusivity, I didn't know the inclusivity is only about ethnicity. I thought the inclusivity is also about the aspect where even the people who are in lower cadre in terms of economy, like border borders, like mama mbogas, like any other person who are down there, people who do kibarua daily, those are the target that we needed to have them to give a solution, because Trevor, most of the economy in this country is being sustained by this kidogo economy, and therefore it forms basis of our resilient economy in terms even of COVID, where we have kidogo economy, where you are having people selling mandazi in the street, having people selling 1 liter of milk, having people selling some packets of tea leaves and many other things. So in my own opinion, and what the Deputy President has been trying to espouse, is that let us have a conversation of inclusivity, not ethnically, not politically, but also in terms of economy. And I think that one has been misread. Because when you had the president saying that we're having class war, we are fomenting class war, it's not true. I think where the incitement has come before is where you are inciting other tribes than the others, where in the other day he did say in Western Kenya, in my neighboring Vihiga County, where he said that these two tribes have led, so they have let other tribes do it. I think that is a direct incitement, and suppose that what he's trying to allude. Because I've had the president, and it is so embarrassing that we have National Intelligence Service, and the president gets an advantage of daily briefings. I happen to be the senator of Nandi, where that unfortunate incident of touching of a vehicle was happening, and that is a matter under investigation by the authorities. It has nothing to do with Asla or Dynasty issue. That was just a pure accident, and you didn't even, I think before we came on set, there was a story of another accident that was being discussed there in Nairobi. And there are many accidents that are happening in the country where wananchi react has always been an issue of debate, because what happened in Nandi does not itself linked with the Dynasty or Hustler. So I think the president or NIS are embarrassing the president. They should give him the true facts of really what happened. Okay. Finally, on the issue of Hustler versus Dynasty, I don't think it is fomenting any class war. We are just saying, let us include people. And I think, Trevor, as I sign out on that issue, I think there is bitterness from people who have used tribe to ascend to power, or to use chieftains or tribal chiefs to ascend into power. Now they are bitter that Kenyans are having a conversation which is a tribeless conversation, that regardless of the tribe you come from, you can have a united and a conversation that can unite the country, that everybody speaks from a Giriama, from a Luo, from a Kalenjin, from a Kikuyu, where they are saying the problems we are facing are similar. Let us have this conversation without the hindsight or without the hanging of being a tribe A or XY. I think that is where the problem we are having, because people who have used tribes to ascend to power are now bitter that their currency is expiring.
Okay. Honorable Tiendamol, your reaction?
I think it's laughable when Senator Cherargei and the Deputy President earlier, I think the whole of last week, were talking about and condemning the President for promoting tribalism. You know, when Cherargei talks of having a movement that is tribeless, look at page 10. The Miot just endorsed Ruto. And what is their reason? that they could not support Senator Moi because he does not have support from the rest of the country, which is critical for our community to clinch the presidency. I mean, what nonsense. Let's not delude ourselves. We are in a political situation where, first, our politics is ethnic-based, it's region-based. And that is the truth. And then now, it is also then mixed across the country. So there's nothing like having, tribalist consultation. In any event, if that was the case, we would see Ruto coming to reject this endorsement by his tribe. He should say, no, no, no. I do not want a tribal endorsement. I want a national endorsement. He has never done that. We would wait till doomsday. If you are talking about tribal incitement, just recently, there were leaflets which were spewed everywhere in Eldoret against certain communities, just because it is perceived that the president is not endorsing his deputy. Not the DP, not Senator Cherugei, none of the leaders have come out to condemn that kind of thing. And obviously, for something like that to happen, obviously some leaders were involved in it. So let's not go that way. I agree completely with the president.
I'll give you a chance to respond. Let him finish.
I agree completely with the president, and I said this last...
Cherargei, hold on.
Hold your peace.
I will give you a chance to respond to that. I know Mandago spoke about it, and you as well. Just hold on.
And while at it, you must educate Senator Cherargei on my name. He keeps calling me Atiende Omolo. He's called that like 10 times. Please tell him to repeat 10 times that my name is Otiende Amolo. Otiende Amolo. Let me now continue. I agree completely with the president, and I spoke to this last week.
Yeah.
What the Hustler Nation is doing is they are beginning a dangerous narrative to which they cannot see its end. Once it picks up, even they would not be able to stop it.
Yeah.
And it's a very dangerous narrative that ferments a class war. Any society on this earth, there are always differences in terms of class. We have many problems in this country. But fortunately, we have never had class wars because it's the most dangerous and it might not come to an end. This thing of classifying people as dynasties and hustlers and all that, it's utter nonsense because as I said last week, first of all, the leader of that so-called hustler has benefited from the people he calls dynasties throughout. And if you examine closely, there is nothing that is hustler about William Ruto. He fits completely within anyone who can be so rich within less than 30 years without proper explanation can surely only be classified among the dynasties if it's a class war. Anyone who goes to donate wheelbarrows and has like, I don't know, 10 choppers, has how many hotels everywhere, that's not a hustler. But what it does is this. It ferments disaffection among those who are already frustrated in life, and many Kenyans are, for different reasons.
Yeah.
The moment, and this is what we should ask ourselves, the moment you ferment disaffection among the Kenyans in Kawangware, in Kibra, in Mukuru Kwanjenga, in Mathare, to a sense of entitlement that the car you drive, you are probably driving it because you disadvantage them, and therefore they are entitled to take it. That where you live well because of something else that has disadvantaged them. The moment, and this is the question you should ask, the moment that class war really ferments and they come calling appropriating cars, appropriating buildings, appropriating houses, who is likely to suffer most? The irony of this is that those who will suffer most are most likely those who have benefited the most from leadership of this country. And so, the very people who are fermenting this are the very people who will suffer the most.
Okay.
Let us examine this. What is this thing of trying to persuade young people that what will serve them best after years of education, and there are many educated Kenyans with degrees without a job, that if you give them a wheelbarrow, now you've liberated him. A wheelbarrow is the earliest form of the agrarian revolution, which happened between 1750 and 1850, 200 years ago. The agrarian revolution came and passed, and many other revolutions. And now, in the last 50 or so years, we are in what we call the Silicon Valley revolution. Everything is based on the computer. The Jubilee administration, give credit to them, in their last election, rode on a mantra of digital, which I understood to mean that they want to empower this country through the Silicon revolution. And they even promised tablets for class 1 pupils all the way. Now, if you jump from that and go back 200 years, that you want to give a graduate a wheelbarrow, what are you doing? Okay. What you are doing, you are not empowering. You are actually riding that person as a wheelbarrow. I want to caution Kenyans. Be the change that you need. Do not be rode as a wheelbarrow. Okay. That is what the Hustler Nation is doing.
All right. Cherargei, I'll give you a chance. Just let one.
Cherargei. Before, just a minute. Trevor, what I'm saying is that my brother, and I'm apologizing for getting his name wrong, my learned senior, is that if you look at the footage, the governor of Uasin Gishu, Jackson Mandago, did issue a statement condemning the circulating of those leaflets, and the police are investigating that matter. So my brother, my learned senior, Omolo, should not mislead the country.
Have you condemned it yourself?
We have condemned it. Is in
have you condemned it?
You haven't done it yourself. I know Mandago condemned it, and yes, it is true. We aired that part.
What I'm just saying, he had said no leader had condemned. What I'm putting on record, and is even some of your, I suspect some of your reporters from Uasin Gishu County might have also gotten that footage. So
we aired it right here. I was here when it was being aired.
Yeah, and then that is
Trevor, the leadership.
But personally, it is in Uasin Gishu County. Of course, the first person who would have condemned are local leaders that come from there. But I also don't agree where the Kenyans are to be incited based on their tribe. I think that is sad, and that is the law that the country can sing. So my brother, learned senior, should stop misleading the country, because that matter was condemned by local leadership in Uasin Gishu, led by Governor Mandago. Okay. And therefore, he should just stop misleading the country.
All right. Wamatangi?
Yes, Trevor, let me try to recalibrate the debate to where it was before. because Senator Cherargei seems to have had a burning issue on that particular matter. And it's a serious one anyway, but we can get to that later. A few points I wanted to make, Trevor. One, in our own constitution, which we gave ourselves in 2010, we have dedicated several a whole chapter and several articles to address the issues of inequality, addressing matters of affirmative action. Actually, in the Bill of Rights, you will find that when the Bill of Rights extrapolates on issues like economic rights, that Kenyans have a right to this, Kenyans have a right to own land, Kenyans have a right to do this, to do business and so on, it is by itself an acknowledgement that this challenge of the haves and have not, for us to have penned it in the Constitution and passed it, it's an acknowledgement that this is a challenge that we have in our country, and it has been there, and it has been major. I mean, otherwise it would not have found itself in our Constitution. Let's make that point first clear, so that when we debate it, it does not look like it is a far-fetched story when people are talking about the difference between the haves and have-nots, and whether it is an issue of currency now, and that people should address it. I believe it is a matter of absolute importance, because if you look, and this is not only national, to a larger extent, it is even it's global. You know, for a student of economics and so on, and global trends, you would be able to know how it looks like even, you know, across the other countries. But in Kenya, it is was aggravated. Let me tell you, Trevor, that according to international statistics, Kenya is number 21 in the whole world on the differences between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-not, the inequality gap. We rank number 21 as the highest. So it is a major issue, and so we may need to make that acknowledgement. Number two, the point I would want to make is this, that the so-called now hustler versus a dynasty and so on. We also need to take a step back, and it is important for us to be open and honest about it. You see, this whole dynasty story, largely because it has been mooted as a political discussion, largely revolves around the Jaramogi Odinga and the Raila Odinga family, and now downwards to Jomo Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta families. And it is important for us also to put it clearly. You know, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga has been said many times. And you know the history of that man. He was a fighter for freedom and so on, and a crusader for democracy and so on. And his background is known. Then, unfortunately, he finds himself, or rather, fortunately, he finds himself in a position whereby he's got a son who is not only robust, but radical in terms of pursuit of certain freedoms and rights and so on in the name of Raila Odinga. Yeah. And if also you read the history of Raila Odinga, you also find that, you know, he had his own fire that brought him to where he is anyway. And so it is not, it is not a trait or characters that he was bequeathed that take this to become this. Now, the story of Jomo Kenyatta and Uhuru Kenyatta is another story. I mean, Kenyatta was a fighter, blah, blah, and that has been said. And then Uhuru gets to a point where he fights for the presidency and he's elected. And so that whole narrative is what would need to debunk now from the actual discussion that we have had. And Trevor, if you have read theories by Karl Marx and Keynesian theories and so on, you know what it means when you're talking about this hustler discussion. And that is why then now we have to distill it to what it is. Now, discussed, propagated in the current scenario the way it is being, we've been done now, we have to be truthful and say that it has an extreme potential to be dangerous. Okay. And I will tell you why we say that. Because devoid of those realities, because if you want to give William Ruto his label, you must also acknowledge the fact that inevitably he is a symbol of the have-nots, even though he is who he is right now. And I believe one of the questions we'll be asking the hustler discussers is, are we also going to open this discussion to have hustlers who used to be, hustlers who are, and hustlers who will be? Former former. But you cannot, again, take away the reality that William Ruto, because of our history. Trevor, you know, we have been independent for almost 58 years. For those years, we have had those 4 presidents. If we were the USA, with their form of democracy, we would have had probably 8 or more presidents. That would have given us the opportunity by then probably to try that president, another one, and another one. Then this question of hustlers coming ascending to power would not have been there. The point I wanted to address in summary is this, that if we do not moderate and calibrate that discussion on the hustlers and the dynasties, then it can mess this country to an extent whereby even when William Ruto himself, for example, and I'll give a live example myself, because I come from a community that has had a big challenge. You remember, there was a time we had a big challenge with a sect that was calling itself Mungiki in Mt.Kenya region, which terrorized people terribly, killing people and murdering people in broad daylight. And they used to go to somebody's home and charge you for having a stone-walled house. They would say your levy is so much in the evening. If you have a butchery, they come for a kilo of meat in the evening. And they were saying because they have been left behind, and there are those that have, and they should be paying them. Matatus used to pay levy. When you are passing, there were guys standing in every stage where you come and pay 50 bob every time when you stop at us. I mean, it was terrible with those kind of things. And that's what I'm saying. Because facts must be put right the way they are. No matter where we stand politically. And I acknowledge fully that, you know, by perception and by reality, that yes, William Ruto stands and represents that image of our people. And he has a right to go and campaign. But the narrative driven the way it is being driven, eventually, even if and when if God wills that he becomes president, he might not be able to stop that thing. It took us so many years as a community to deal with the question of Mungiki ourselves. Even today, in some areas it is still a problem. You find you go in it recurs. We need to be very careful, Trevor, with this discussion. When you had that person, there was a person who was preaching, talking about that vehicle that was being banned.
Yes.
If you drive in Nairobi right now, and you go to any place driving your small car, Trevor, I don't know whether you have a small or a big car.
No.
You might be having a big one.
That's not the discussion.
But let me tell you, it is likely he could be having a big one.
That is not the discussion. I need to wind up this discussion.
If you go and by bad luck you hit a border person right now anywhere, you'll find what happens.
Okay.
They all come and mob you. Maybe 100 of them within no time if you're a motorist. Now, if we let that loose, if we do not control that right now, then we can have a big
all right,
problem.
gentlemen,
But
I
believe
run out of time here, but I want to give you
should campaign
a minute each.
He has a right to campaign.
I want to give you a minute each for closing remarks. Gerard Gay, just 1 minute because we run out of time here. Just closing remarks.
Thank you, Trevor, and thank you for having me. I think as the new year rolls into place, I think as a country we need to put our priorities right.
Okay.
I think the biggest priority is to address the issue of COVID by getting vaccine, ensure that our children are not being sent home because of school fees, and I think the government should put that in place. I've heard the CS Makoa complaining that principals should not send the children to school, but I want to appeal that the government to intervene so that our children are not being sent school fees. Finally, on the issue of health crisis, I think as a Senate, we need to address this issue because it's now more than 40-something days that the health workers are on being strike, and I hope the president will intervene and stop the loss of 2 billion per day, so that money can be used to pay and set the issues of health and other within the government so that we can address. So I think that is the country we want to have. I think for BBI, I think it's not a priority now. Let us refocus our energy to the Big Four agenda.
All right. Honorable Tiende.
The constitution we have so far recognizes the inequality in our society and endeavors to address it through various chapters on equality, through the chapters on social and economic rights. If the hustler movement has any ideology that meaningfully is meant to improve the lot of the youth, the lot of the underprivileged, then they must bring it on the table so that it can be considered either as a constitutional amendment or even as a legislative proposal. But let us not allow ourselves to be used as wheelbarrows for political convenience.
Okay. Wamatangi, 1 minute.
Yes, Trevor, I believe that we have a good chance at taking a fresh shot at making sure that we redirect this country to where we want it to be. And there are some words that were uttered the other day by the president who was speaking, and he said, no one outlives the country. We all come here, we are here for a season, we go, we leave it behind. And that's what we should be thinking about, that what we want our children to be saying about our country in the year 2021 when they speak 100 years from today, when they read the history of this country and the leaders who have been in position, what we want them to see and say. And that is where you find that even today, when the president of the United States is being inaugurated today, they speak about Abraham Lincoln, a president of the 1800s, and they'll be saying that this is what they said. They speak about their founders' dreams and what they've stood for, and that's where I would want to redirect my mind and urge my fellow leaders that when we do things now, let's know that we are not doing them for today. We are doing them for another 100, 200 years to come, and we want to be proud of this moment that we have to lead the country by doing the right thing.
All right. Honorable Tiende Omolo Rarieda, Member of Parliament, Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu, and Honorable Samson Cherargei, Senator Nandi, thank you so much for making time here. I see on Twitter a lot of feedback. Let me try and read a few of them really quick. Mabolo Kitui on Twitter says, the bitterness of Kenyans is the BBI thing of creating positions, yet no one is addressing the sickening economic